Don't adjust your screen. There is nothing wrong. You're about to enter a world where the very concept of time is rendered obsolete by the sheer power of entertainment. You're about to enter the Boggis Hour. Coming to you from an undisclosed location deep in the heart of the Game City, the host of the Boggis Hour, Greg Boggis.
Welcome to another action-packed episode of the Boggis Hour. My guest for the entire show is a veteran of the Boston comedy scene. Been on Comedy Central, A&E, Showtime. He was in Bob Goldthwait's cult classic film, Shakes the Clown. He's here for the Boggis Hour interview, Tony V.
I've got a new favorite reality show, and it should be the only thing on television ever, on every channel. It's called Swamp People. Have you seen this? It is the best thing on television. I am so addicted to it. And I don't know, if you don't know what it's about swamp people. In the swamp. And I don't know if you have the same prejudice that I do, and I'm working on this. I know it's a prejudice. If I hear a southern accent, I automatically assume you're a moron. I'm sorry, it's me, I know it, but you could be discovering life on other planets and I wouldn't listen to you. Well, we're just looking through the Hubble telescope over there.
Well, I'd like to welcome my guest to the Boggis Hour, Mr. Tony V, comedian, actor, writer, and about town.
I am all that. Not so you'd know it, but if you look at my resume, that's what it says, yeah.
So we watched a little clip of you performing your stand-up comedy at Giggles Comedy Club in Saugus, the legendary Giggles.
Yeah, one of my rare appearances there.
You are, if there was a Mount Rushmore at Giggles, you would be one of the faces.
Yeah, I'm surprised our heads have not been carved into somewhere.
Parmesan, maybe.
Yeah, oh, that'd be nice. The Tony Parmesan look like my face. Yeah, but yeah, I mean that's basically my home, away from home, you know. And if I'm not on stage there, I'm out back smoking a cigar by the dumpster, which is my happy place, as they say. You know what I mean?
Zone of comfort.
Yeah, yeah. I was doing a show the other night, and we were at the Schubert Theater. It was a pretty, big show, 1,300 people, blah, blah, blah. And, I had a list of people go, we want to say hi after the show, whatever. So just as I was closing the show, I go, look, don't come rushing up to the stage. If you want me, I'm going to be in the alley smoking a cigar. You come around the back, I'll gladly say hi to you. If you don't, I'm not saying you have to. I don't even think it's a big deal. Just if you want, that's where I'll be.
That's where I'll be.
That's where I'll be.
Yeah, that was an old Teddy Bergeron bit about the cigarette, when they started with the cigarette quitting, too.
Right.
Where's the guy doing heroin? Oh, he's over there in the lounge. Just the guy who's smoking cigarettes. He's in the urine soaked alley.
Yeah.
So, and that's how I got to actually first see you, was at the Amherst Country Club.
Oh yeah, back in the day.
Yes.
That was one of the first satellite rooms, and it ran for many, many years. Right. And it was a sweet
magic
gig.
place.
It was great. Yeah, I mean, for the time it ran, it was, it was a very well-run room.
Right.
This fella Robin Horton ran it, and he was like a general when it came to his comedy.
Right.
And so it worked great. And I mean, it was a weekly show, so you'd work it, 5 or 6 times a year. And they always had great crowds.
Yeah, and I was one of them. My 16th birthday, my parents took me there.
16?
Yeah.
No kidding.
16th birthday. And then I used my brother's ID to get in the rest of the time. So,
right.
Once a week from probably 82 to 85.
Yeah. I mean, that's when it ran.
And that was the
place. I mean,
incendiarily hot.
And at the time when we started doing stuff like that, in and around Boston, that's how, people wouldn't come into Boston. It was like a foreign land to
Right.
them. So to bring comedy to people was like a brand new thing, and they were great. The only time that the Amherst Country Club went belly up, one year, it was the night before New Year's Eve, and they were having like a show, like a pre-New Year's Eve show, and somebody thought it'd be fun, so they promoted as comedy, and then a midnight toast,
Oh, yeah.
and they actually handed out pieces of toast.
Oh, no.
No, that was the gag. So yes. So you basically handed out burnt little frisbees at people, and it really was like that's the only time. And in retrospect, you go, that's hysterical.
Right.
You know what I mean? With dodging toast.
Although Bob
telling
Seibel
gigs.
said that you were he did a bachelor
He
party.
did a bachelor party. We were doing a show in the front room. They hired him to do the bachelor party. And I don't think we can say what happened on the air. But let me just say it this way. While he was performing, so was someone else in full bachelor party mode, if you know what goes on at those things.
And that's a tough act to follow.
That's hard. That's usually when you're finished, you're finished.
So, my looking back at your history,
Yeah.
you were the Comedy Connection was where you started.
I started at the Comedy Connection in Boston, which was in the
Charles Playhouse?
the Charles Playhouse, where the Blue Man Group is now.
Right.
There, we were in the lounge, and that was really, sort of the epicenter. And then it sort of went out. It went out from there.
Right.
They had done. Then there was the Ding Ho,
Yeah.
which got started by a bunch of people who sort of felt ostracized from the Connection for whatever reason. In history, there's two sides of history everywhere. But originally, the Ding Ho was a place called the Springfield Street Saloon. It was a cowboy bar, like a country western place, and they had I think they had improv, and then they had one night of stand up, and then that stopped when it became the Ding Ho, and then the Comedy Connection went there. And then Nick's Comedy Stop, which is still running to this day,
yeah.
started because the Comedy Connection didn't have a lounge. And so they would go, oh, while you're waiting for the show, when we're doing 3 shows on a Saturday night, they'd go, why don't you go down to Nick's and have a drink and then come back, for the next show.
It kind of never even dawned on me. They're literally right next to
They're
each
100
other.
yards apart,
Right.
And so then astutely, the people at Nick's going, why are we sending those people back there? We got our stage, so then they started keeping their crowd. And then, but they were both very viable concerns for
Right.
the longest time. And we would often, get off one stage and walk down to the other and do a set there and then walk back and do another one.
Right.
And then right across the street for a short period of time,
Duck soup.
Duck Soup, which is now in the bottom of the Wilbur Theater. And then the hotel had a place called Joker's for less than
really?
a year.
I don't remember that.
Right. And then Dick Doherty's place was on the other side of the transportation
sure, the
building.
vault, right.
The vault.
Yeah, so you'd be able to.
So sometime in the late 80s, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 comedy clubs within 150 yards of each other.
Right.
The unique thing about New England is, Boston especially, if you drive an hour in any direction, you're in another state.
Right.
Except east, of course.
Right.
When you end up in the middle of the harbor.
Yeah.
But you could go an hour, 45 minutes, you'd be in Rhode Island. So Rhode Island had a club.
Right.
You'd go to Salem, New Hampshire in 25 minutes, and then we had a regular show in Burlington, Vermont for a place
Right.
called Hayes Landing. So all these states, their biggest towns would grab. So there were a lot
Portsmouth,
of
Manchester.
yeah, and it was the first place in the country where you could actually make a living without being in New York or L.A. or San Francisco, which were the big places.
Right. Yeah, it was an incredible time to be watching
Yeah.
all of that. And
It was,
just
it
so
was nuts. I mean, it could never be duplicated.
And so that's why guys like you were able to excel, because you had just a ton of stage time. I mean, and that's
Yeah.
what ultimately
I could do. I
puts
could,
the butter on the bread is actually getting in front of a crowd. So
right.
you're in this environment where you've got,
Right.
like you said, 7 clubs in one town.
Yeah, what we do can't be done in theory. You have to do it. And I was awful at first, and anybody who was around will tell you that. You know what I mean? I had no training. I just knew I loved the art form, but I could do 7, 8, 10 open mics in a night.
So within 4 years, you get named Showtime's
funniest person in Massachusetts, like 87.
And how did they go about doing that?
They had a nationwide search. Or
they picked somebody from each state.
They go for the clubs, and then they would do a showcase, and then you would advance to the finals, and then there were semifinals, then you'd be the finals, and I was certainly not the funniest person in Massachusetts. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it went that way. But I had that title now, and so that helped you. And the year I became the funniest person in Massachusetts was the year Ellen DeGeneres won the national.
So that gave that whole thing a buzz.
Some legitimacy. And they used to drive around in a Winnebago, in a thing with the big nose and glasses on the front,
So how did you end up stumbling into comedy? I saw you were going to school. You're going to school to be like a social worker kind of guy?
I was a social worker. I was working at the place called the Somerville Mental Health Center, and I was working on my MSW, my Master's of Social Work.
Yep.
I was just about to begin some classes at the Harvard Extension School, and and it was a pretty stressful job, but I always loved comedy. Like
growing up.
I mean,
Yeah, who were your
I go back to
role models and mentors?
I go back to W.C. Fields and the Marx Brothers.
Sure.
And
Marx Brothers were outstanding because they had like Groucho with all the wordsmithing, and then Chico and Harper with all the shtick.
It was like the four of them had one complete human comedian. You know what I mean? They had skills which were amazing to me. But it was that kind of stuff that I liked.
Stooges.
And then Monty Python. Then I got the Three Stooges, of course, and then I got into Monty Python early on.
Right.
When they used before that there was a British show called
The Fawlty Towers?
No, that came after. There was a show called it was a radio show called I'm Sorry, I'll Say That Again, and it was the remnants of the Goon Squad, which was the basis for Monty Python. They sort of sprung from there, and I always liked that absurdist sense of humor where they'd do some reference to Chaucer, and then the next sentence they'd do a fart joke.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I go, that's funny's funny. If you can squeeze it out of it. So that's then of course Lenny Bruce, who I think made it possible for everybody to do what we do now.
Right.
And I think that gets lost, that people don't pay him the respect
Right.
That he deserves.
Multiple jail.
Oh,
jailings.
he died for the cause, which was freedom of speech, and and people forget that he was also funny.
Right.
You know what I mean? He started out as just a comedian.
Yeah.
And
then he became a
then he started talking about real stuff, right? And that's where Carlin came from. But I liked all those guys.
Carlin.
Pryor, that's the lineage, and I don't work particularly dirty, but to have the right to and the ability to, I think it's great. And then,
how do you characterize your performance style?
I'm not exactly, I guess if you'd said I'm a monologist, but there's a little bit of an absurd twist to what I do. It's everything's based in reality, but then it just goes haywire at some point.
And out of a lot of comics, you've just got a real ease and a comfort level on stage that is really, really tough to see a lot of other comics getting past it. You just really have this extremely. So we talked earlier about how you have kind of a broad spectrum of you can do a temple and do a biker bar.
A biker bar, yeah. You have to have the skills to do that. A lot of people just have one speed.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's funny. You gravitate. You like what you don't have. So I see those people and I go, well, that's a good quality to have. This is what I do, and if you don't like it, blah blah blah. But it's why I end up emceeing or
Right.
hosting showcases, because I have the ability to adapt, and I think everything's funny.
Right.
And it goes back to what I just said. I can do a Schrodinger's cat joke. You know what I mean? And have a third of the crowd go, "What?
What is he talking about?"
Why was he doing that?" And then in the next thing, make a noise.
Right. Right.
So, but that's what I think. Whatever it takes.
Sure.
You know.
So to that point, you ended up being the American Tourister
Yeah,
gorilla.
I was the luggage gorilla, and the young people, it won't matter to them. But
Right.
there was a campaign where when luggage was hard-sided and didn't have wheels on it,
Right.
they used to show how tough it was, and they had a gorilla. It was the American Tourister luggage gorilla, and they would, show how tough it was. They'd put the luggage in a cage, and the gorilla would
Beat it up.
and then it would be undamaged. But there wasn't parts of it were a real gorilla, but you can't hand a real gorilla luggage. He would tear it apart. Whatever,
All right, cut.
Right. Another piece of luggage, another piece of luggage. So there was a pretty iconic commercial for a while, ad campaign, and then it went belly up. Or things that ran its course.
Right.
And then they brought it back like 15 years later, 10 or 15 years later, and they were looking to someone to put a voice to it, a little bit of a wisecracking gorilla. And that's where I came in. And again, we did a preliminary show in Boston. Then I made the semifinals in New York, and they were doing that in New York, Chicago, and L.A. And then I didn't even win the original.
Oh, no kidding.
No, it was and I won't use his name, but somebody won. He's been around for a long while, but he was such a pain in the neck from the get-go. It didn't last 8 hours. I went home in second place with a new set of luggage.
You're in.
And then at 8 o'clock in the morning, they go, "Can you get on a plane to L.A.?" And I go, "Absolutely." Because it was a very specific thing. You won X amount of dollars for X amount of appearances.
Right.
And then this guy wanted his family to come with him. He wanted first class. He wanted, and eventually we got all that, but not by demanding. It just
You're
sort
a
of.
gorilla dude.
Yeah, right. Listen, the gorilla suit had a better deal than I did. Like, the gorilla suit was, entombed at American Tourister with a light on it, and it had its own groomer.
Oh,
You know what I
man,
mean?
that's
And it
hysterical.
traveled wet. I'd get there, and I'd be, the suit would be ready and
Oh,
powdered,
wow.
and I'd step into it, and that snap on my head, and then that's when it went belly up. So.
And then what year did you do Shakes the Clown?
Shakes the Clown was 91. I'd done a little acting.
Was that Bobcat's
That was
first?
Bobcat Goldthwait's first foray.
As a director.
He had amazing success in the
Performing.
in front of the camera, and then he wanted to make his own movie, and he made Shakes the Clown, which became a cult
Classic.
classic.
Sure.
It was Nirvana's favorite movie, and they would play it on the bus and all of that. And I was lucky. A lot of good that I have received in my career is much of it is a direct result of my friendship with Bobcat Goldthwait. You know what I mean? We were the new guys at one point. He had come in. He's younger than I, but he came into Boston not knowing anybody, and his first night in town was my first open mic night.
Oh, no kidding.
And no one else would talk to us, so we sort of gravitated to each other, and then and he's been a good friend for 30 years. Yeah.
Sure, and a great,
Yeah.
great talent.
Yeah, and at one point we were on tour together for 12 years.
Right.
Just,
Right.
we never officially called it a tour, but we'd go do dates, and he'd call me and go, "We're going to okay." I went to Guam with him. I went to England and got to work at the Palladium.
Wow.
Because Jerry Lewis got sick, and I ended up closing this massive show at the Palladium, and all because of him.
And you got to work with Lawanda Page.
I got to work with Lawanda Page.
On Esther, for those of you who don't know, from Sanford and Son.
Oh, was she Randy, man. if you see her in Shakespeare Con, if you get a hold of it, that was all her.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That was just kind of her improv.
That was her. Yeah, they gave, they knew what we did the scene, and then Bob goes, okay, do what you want. And she came out with this line, and then it's the first time I'd ever seen him speechless, and he goes, well, all right then. That's a cut on Luanda there, So yeah, you should go see it if you can find it. We just had the 25th anniversary show.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. And then you ended up doing your
umbrella twirling on Seinfeld. Yeah, I've had a bunch of
so those
parts.
are and those are all like kind of cool cultural touchstones.
There was a time in L.A. if you didn't do a Seinfeld, and I had a place in New York and L.A.
Yeah.
I always kept my house in Boston, and then I had a run of like in the '90s doing a bunch of guest spots on Happily Ever After, The Single Guy. Then I did Seinfeld, and I did a couple other sitcoms, right. And then I had a great run with a show called Brotherhood on Showtime, where I was actually a recurring character on that.
And that was based in Providence?
Providence, Rhode Island. Yeah. And it was more of a. I mean, I was a little bit of the comic relief in a drama, but I was just sort of a dopey. Cop couldn't get out of his own way,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I worked on FX with Bobcat Goldthwait on the Big Ass Show.
Oh, right.
Which was FX's first
game show.
Yeah, it was a game show, and it was their first
produced
vehicle. And we did 168 of those or something like that in 2.5 years. We just we'd tape 4 or 5 a night. And I was like the lovable sidekick,
His was that Ed McMahon.
Yeah. And we really turned that on its ear too, because that came about. I was writing for him. He asked me to write for him, and I was sitting in on the meeting with the producers, and they just said, they go, on game shows you never see what happens to the losers. And that was I was just sitting there. I lean over at Goldthwait and I go, why don't we torture them? He goes, what? He goes, why don't we torture them? You take them backstage to like a, dimly lit, and I make them clean my toes or something. You know what I mean? And the producer heard. He goes, what? And I go, you torture them. We could come up with gags, and I had people drinking my sweat. I had, one. I remember one. This one got us into trouble. They go, what are you doing with the losers today, Tone? I go, I ran out of ideas, so I just rolled them up in my rug, and I'm beating them with a bat. And so it was all props. But so at that meeting, they handed me a buck and said, you're hired.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So we also talked earlier about how there are no Tony V books.
Yeah, I don't believe in any of that.
Tony V keychains.
No. I actually have I have a case of bumper stickers that I had made up because I get these ideas like I'm going to sell bumper stickers because you got to have something. So I made these bumper stickers that say stop texting, you're going to kill somebody. LOL. Smiley face, but so it looks like a text, and I go, "That's genius," and the case has been in my hall for 2.5 years now because I'm never gonna haul them out.
Well, I've just been. My cousin is actually instrumental in the wooden nickel world.
Oh yeah.
So if you ever decide you want a Tony V wooden
nickels, oh that's nice. Wow. I don't think I've ever met anybody. Big in the wooden nickel.
Yeah. So he. I mean,
people actually. After all these years,
they have conventions, and they sell. They trade them. He gets them shipped in from Canada and all that. And you got to go through and categorize them historically. It's a fascinating.
It's surprising to me that after all the years of being told not to take
wooden nickels,
that there's a whole industry of wooden nickels. Yeah, that's great.
So you're big on the experiential part of stand-up comedy.
I really believe that what we do is it's a live medium.
Right.
You know what I mean? And every show, it could be the same, mostly the same jokes, but it's truly unique.
Right.
You know what I mean? That group of people and that comedian or set of comedians never going to be in the same place again. You know, unless something really weird happens. So I think it's that kind of, and it's meant to be done in an intimate setting, and you know, and
to that end,
yes.
what is like one experience you've had at a show that was so, you know, either outrageous or off the beam, or memorable? I mean, I'm sure you've had many, but there's got to be.
I've had really. I mean, I had water thrown on me at a graduation ceremony for UMass that started a near riot.
Really?
Because you know you know, a left-wing faction on the campus, you know, wanted to cause trouble, and I was just the instrument for it.
Oh.
Because if you remember, this goes back years. This one sticks out. And it's a big thing. It's their graduation dinner and blah, blah, blah. And the set's going really well. And this goes back years. So, again, it's topical. With Jerry Falwell, the guy.
Moral majority
guy who turned out to be a fraud, of course. But his wife had claimed, he claimed that he woke up one night and the devil was in his bedroom.
Oh.
And his wife came in and scared the devil away. So you can see where this joke is going. That is going to be one ugly human being. If you can, you know, if you can scare the devil.
Whoa.
You know, I don't know what she puts on at night, or takes off, but you just scared the devil. So that was the joke, got a laugh and harmless or whatever. And these people came up, and I saw the whole thing coming with a pitcher of water, and they said, "We find that joke offensive." Right? No, and I go, "Not at all." And I'm defending myself now in front of the whole thing. It's sexist. You know, you're making fun of women. I said, "No, I'm reporting the facts." If he had said his dog scared the devil, I'd go, "That is one ugly dog." If he said his son scared the devil, I'd go, "That's a mean-looking kid."
Right.
But it happened to be the wife, and they were having none of it, and I got a huge round of applause. I defended myself, and they threw this water on me, and it was a big to-do, you know, and then, you know, they had security surround me, and they go, "We're going to take you out the back door," and I go, No, I'm walking right.
No shame here.
Exact way I came in. I did nothing wrong.
Right.
And then there were 14 calls of, you know, "You're not going to sue us, are you?"
It's a pitcher of water.
I go, "Hey, you know, we were on electronic equipment. It could have been, I'd roll, you know, but I'm not that guy either, you know."
And then finally, you mentioned a podcast.
I have a podcast now with our buddy Jimmy Dunn.
Yep.
A fine poker player.
New Hampshire guy.
We have a podcast now, which I like.
Yep.
You know, because it's like having an album, but a new one every week.
Right.
Where it's, you know, it's very off the cuff.
Right.
We have a single topic and then it goes nutty from there. But it's called Two Boston Guys Whack Up a Pie. You can find it. It's on iTunes and a couple of, I don't know how any of that works.
Right.
You know, he sets up the mics and I talk.
Right.
But it's been going pretty well. We got 4 in the can, and I guess we're late to the podcast world.
It's been around.
Yeah, I guess now. Hey, we're going to put some of these jokes on Telegraph. I think the kids will like that.
Have you thought of a MySpace page?
Oh, the interweb. The kids like that.
And finally, where do you go for pie?
Petsy's Pie.
That is in?
It's in they're based in Cambridge. There's one in Somerville as well. But if you can get a Petsy Pie in you, man,
it's worth it.
It's worth it. It's funny now when you become a victim of your own delights.
Yes.
So I have people like routinely sending me
pies
or where to get pies. You know, have you tried the grape pie from so-and-so in upstate New York? No, do they send them out? Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
You know, now I get a grape pie on the way to my house because I've never had a grape pie.
Which is just what you need is a
more,
never-ending pipeline of pies sent to you.
Like it's like an easier way to get pie in me.
Mr. Creosote.
And put it in a bucket.
Well, hey, thanks for coming on the Boggis Hour. Time has flown.
It was easy, man.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
Very easy. That's what I like to have. So thanks for coming on, Tony V.
Thanks for having me.
And please go see Tony V live. He's
Can I keep the bird?
He's the guy to see. That is, by the way, Uncle Ed carved that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
All right.
So my father's oldest brother was an artist.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Nice work.
So Thanks a lot.
Thanks, man.
All right.
Great.
If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the Boggis Hour, email us here at theboggushour@gmail.com.